You go to bed with 2 or 3 fruit flies drifting around your fruit bowl. You wake up and there's a small cloud of them hovering over your sink like they multiplied overnight. Here's the uncomfortable truth. They kind of did. A single female fruit fly can lay up to 500 eggs across her lifetime and under warm kitchen conditions. An egg can go from laid to fully grown adult in as little as 7 to 10 days. That's not an infestation building slowly, that's a population that can genuinely double while you're asleep. Tonight, I'm going to show you the exact trap that catches essentially every fruit fly in your kitchen by morning, the specific reason fruit flies find one bait completely irresistible while ignoring another that looks almost identical, and a genuinely surprising finding from actual entomology research about what beats vinegar entirely. Let's get into it. If you're new here, hit subscribe and drop a comment telling me where the fruit flies in your kitchen seem to be coming from, the fruit bowl, the sink, somewhere you can't figure out. Let's go. Here's the biology that explains why this problem escalates so fast. A female fruit fly lays her eggs directly on the skin of fermenting or overripe fruit, and those eggs hatch within about 24 hours. The larvae then feed for roughly 4 days, growing through several stages, before crawling off to pupate for another 4 to 6 days. Added up and under good conditions, the entire cycle from egg to fully grown, breeding adult takes as little as 7 to 10 days, sometimes stretching closer to 2 weeks in cooler conditions. And here's the part that really explains the overnight explosion. A newly emerged female is sexually mature and ready to lay her own 500 eggs within about 48 hours of becoming an adult. You're not dealing with one generation slowly growing, you're dealing with overlapping generations compounding on top of each other continuously. There's also a timing detail that explains why you specifically notice them more in the morning. Fruit flies are most active during dawn and dusk hours, which means a trap set out in the evening is working during exactly the window when the most flies are actively out searching for food right before you go to sleep and right as the sun comes up. That's precisely why this method genuinely can clear out a kitchen by morning. You're not just trapping randomly. You're trapping during their peak activity window while you're unconscious and they think they've got the place to themselves. Now here's the actual science behind why the classic trap works so well, and it's more specific than most people realize. Fruit flies detect fermentation through smell, and vinegar, specifically apple cider vinegar, is essentially the finished product of fermentation. Apples crushed into juice, converted to alcohol by yeast, then converted again into acetic acid by bacteria in the air. That final acetic acid smell is exactly what signals fermenting fruit to a fruit fly's sense of smell. But here's the detail almost nobody mentions. Research on fruit fly behavior has found they're only mildly attracted to acetic acid at low concentrations and will actually avoid it entirely at high concentrations, because a very strong vinegar smell reads to them as fruit that's gone too far, essentially rotten past the point of being useful. What makes apple cider vinegar specifically effective isn't the acid alone. It's the full cocktail of fermentation byproducts riding along with it, including trace organic acids like citric acid that fruit flies find strongly attractive even at very low levels. And it's not just smell. Fruit flies also taste acidity directly through a dedicated sensing mechanism on their taste receptors that responds specifically to low acid foods as appealing. Researchers who disabled this specific channel found the flies stop being drawn to foods they'd normally find completely irresistible. So a vinegar trap is working on fruit flies through both smell and taste simultaneously, which is part of why it's so consistently effective compared to almost anything else you could put in a bowl. Here's exactly how to build it. Pour about half a cup of apple cider vinegar into a small jar or bowl. Add a few drops of dish soap, don't stir it in, just let it sit on the surface. This part matters just as much as the vinegar itself. The soap breaks the surface tension of the liquid completely, so instead of a fly landing on the vinegar and casually flying back off, it breaks through the surface immediately and can't escape. For extra effectiveness, cover the jar with plastic wrap secured with a rubber band and poke 5 or 6 small holes in the top with a toothpick. Flies follow the scent in through the holes, but have a genuinely hard time finding their way back out through them, which meaningfully boosts your catch rate over an open bowl. Now, here's the finding that actually surprised me researching this. A study comparing common household fruit fly baits found that actual rotting bananas outperformed apple cider vinegar in raw attractiveness, with mushrooms coming in as a strong second choice behind that. So, if you've got a banana that's gone properly soft and brown sitting in your kitchen already, don't throw it out. Cut a piece into a jar with a splash of water and a few drops of dish soap. Cover it the same way with holes poked in plastic wrap, and you may genuinely out-trap a straight vinegar setup. This makes sense once you think about it. Actual overripe fruit gives off a wider, more complex scent profile than vinegar alone ever could, since it's the real thing vinegar is only imitating the smell of. Here's a testing result that debunks something that sounds like it should work but doesn't. Balsamic vinegar seems like an obvious upgrade since it's rich, sweet, and clearly a fermented product, but independent testing found a balsamic and red wine vinegar mixture in an open bowl caught essentially zero flies, even though flies were visibly curious about the actual bottle itself. The likely explanation is that balsamic's thick, syrupy consistency releases its aroma very differently once poured into an open, shallow dish compared to concentrated at the neck of a sealed bottle, so what smells irresistible in the bottle falls flat the moment it's poured into a trap, if you don't have apple cider vinegar on hand. A leftover splash of red wine with a few drops of dish soap is a genuinely reliable substitute since wine carries many of the same fermentation compounds. Beer works too, though somewhat less consistently. If you want a genuinely different bait for variety, or you've got fruit flies that seem uninterested in your vinegar trap specifically. Warm milk with 2 teaspoons of sugar and a few drops of dish soap, topped with cracked black pepper, works through an entirely different mechanism, mimicking the smell of natural fermentation in a way that draws flies in from across the room, especially overnight when they're most active. Now, here's why setting a trap alone sometimes doesn't fully solve the problem. And it's the piece that actually determines whether this is a one-night fix or a recurring headache. Traps catch the adults flying around your kitchen right now. They do nothing about eggs and larvae that may already be developing somewhere you're not looking, most commonly inside a drain, where a buildup of organic residue over time creates exactly the moist. Warm breeding environment fruit flies need. If you're only ever setting traps and seeing a temporary drop followed by another wave a few days later, that's very likely what's happening. New adults are hatching out of a spot the trap was never designed to reach, pouring a mixture of vinegar and baking soda directly into your drains, letting it sit and fizz for 30 minutes before running water. Addresses that hidden source directly rather than just catching the flies it eventually produces. Here's the complete system, start to finish. Half a cup of apple cider vinegar with a few drops of dish soap left unstirred on the surface, plastic wrap with holes poked in it for extra catch rate, a piece of genuinely overripe banana as an alternative or backup bait if you've got one going soft anyway, red wine as your substitute if you're out of vinegar. Set multiple small traps around the kitchen rather than one large one, near the fruit bowl, near the sink, near the trash, since fruit flies respond better to several nearby scent sources than one distant one. And treat your drains alongside the traps if this keeps coming back after a few days, since that's usually where the next wave is actually coming from. 2 honest notes before you go. First, replace your trap liquid every 1 to 3 days, since a trap that's caught flies and started to lose its fresh fermentation smell becomes noticeably less effective the longer it sits. Second, if you're dealing with a genuinely large swarm rather than a handful of flies, expect it to take a couple of nights rather than exactly one, since a trap works on population reduction over time. And a severe infestation simply has more flies for it to work through before your kitchen feels properly clear. Hit like if you're setting one of these traps up tonight. Drop a comment telling me if you tried the banana version or stuck with straight vinegar. I want to know which one actually wins in your kitchen. Share this with anyone who's been fighting the same fruit fly cloud for weeks. Click the next video for more. Subscribe if you haven't. Take care. I'll see you in the next one.